This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou. This is the English soundtrack from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou.
3, 2, 1, top, allumage et décollage.
Greetings to all of our friends around the world, and welcome once again to Kourou, the home of the Ariane family, for today's live broadcast of Arianespace's Vega flight number 15. We're very happy to have all of you with us for the mission tonight. We're launching an Earth observation satellite. It's called FalconEye1, and it's for the United Arab Emirates. At this hour, all the teams involved here at the space base back in Europe and around the world are gearing up for liftoff. We're on time and we're on target at just under 13 minutes to go until liftoff. Coming to you live, as always, from this building, it's the Jupiter Mission Control Center, the heart of the space base, the center of all the action, and plenty of action to come, so don't go away. We're going to move outside for a first look, a closer look at the vehicle. Vega stands 30 meters tall. She's a 4-stage solid and liquid propellant vehicle. First 3 stages make up the lower composite and run on solid fuel. The fourth is powered by a liquid propellant system. The fourth stage is also reignitable, which is important, and we'll be getting back to that. We'll be describing each stage in turn as it's functioning so you can follow Vega on her mission. Vega, of course, is the newest member of the Ariane family. Very happy to have with us tonight from Arianespace, Executive Vice President Luce Fabriguet. Luce, come on over here. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Josh.
You look pleased. Is it anything to do with the weather?
The weather is fine today. The winds are with us. So
the winds are with us.
It's great.
Great. Okay, we have a few minutes. A couple of questions, if you don't mind. First question, today's the 15th launch of a Vega. What makes the mission so special?
The mission is very special today because of our customer. We are very pleased to launch for the first time an Earth observation satellite for Emirates, for this customer, important customer for us. And the satellite FalconEye1 was built by a consortium with Airbus, our customer of today, Airbus Defence and Space, the prime contractor, and Thales Arianespace, the co-prime of this satellite. So we are very pleased to have you, all of you here today.
Can you further describe the mission, maybe some facts and figures that people can remember?
As you can see, the launch vehicle is on the launch pad with this satellite on board. The mobile gantry has been removed now, so the liftoff will take place at accurately 10 p.m., 53 minutes and 3 seconds. The launch vehicle will head towards the north, and 57 minutes after the liftoff, we will have the separation of the satellite off the west coast of Australia.
It's going north, meaning it's going into sun-synchronous orbit. Can you explain that?
You're right. It will be injected into a sun-synchronous orbit, so a circular orbit, nearly polar orbit, and it's a very convenient orbit for Earth observation, because when each time the satellite flies over a point on the Earth, the given point is receives always the same conditions from the sun. So that allows to have constant sun conditions and to compare the pictures.
Okay. In 30 seconds, in 20 seconds, Vega is well suited to this type of mission. Why is that?
Yes, very well suited because of its performance and because of its versatility, as you said before, with a restartable upper engine.
Okay. Any last words?
Enjoy the launch.
Enjoy the launch. Okay, Luce Fabriguet, many thanks. Some good information there that you could keep with you for the following events, which are coming up. Now, Luce is going to go take her place behind us here in what they call the fishbowl, but She will be back at the end of the broadcast, of course, for the closing speeches. Staying in Jupiter, we'd like to present some of the key players who make the mission happen. Luce will be taking her place here in just a moment, but with her will be VV15, who is the Deputy Chief Technical Officer, and next to him, Ettore Scardecchia, who's the Chief Technical Officer at Avio. Now, this is the group that will make all the decisions should anything unexpected come up before or during the launch. You may see them on the phones with their teams here at the base or back in Europe. We're going to move back outside and take another look at the gantry. Make all the decisions should anything unexpected. Protects Vega until shortly before launch, when it's removed. Now, these operations took place about 2 hours ago. The decision to withdraw the gantry depends, of course, on the weather, and the weather, as you've been hearing, is very clear. The gantry runs on rails, which means the whole thing can move away as a piece away from the launch vehicle, very convenient. Now, inside the gantry is where everything happens to Vega in her pre-flight phase. The launcher is built inside of it, one stage integrated on top of the other, unlike Ariane 5, if you're familiar with Ariane 5, which is put together in her launcher assembly buildings and then moved to her launch pad. The Vega pad and the gantry are currently being modified to accommodate the new Vega C version, which should launch for the first time next year. We'll be back. We'll have more on that coming up. 8.5 minutes, roughly, until the second Vega launch of the year. Outside, you saw the launcher waiting. Just a quick word on the weather. Those of you here with us in Kourou, you may have noticed that the sky is a little bit cloudier than it has been earlier in the week, which is very convenient for our launch because it means the winds that have been bothering us all week have died down. The only question remaining is on liftoff what the visibility is going to be like if we have low clouds, but we'll hope for the best, and we'll have to wait and see. No launch window tonight. That's because FalconEye is going into a sun-synchronous orbit, as Luce said, and to a specific point, we're going to deposit the passenger directly on its orbital slot. Telecom satellites, like for Ariane, have a long launch window, sometimes 45 minutes or an hour. All right, you know everything. I'm going to head back to the broadcast booth. While I'm doing that, take a look at a film on the launch campaign to see how Vega is put together. We'll be back.
Welcome, everybody. As mission director of this VV15 launch campaign, my role is to coordinate the satellite operation with the launch base and the launcher activities.
For the first time in the Vega campaign, the satellite inside the fairing was integrated on the launcher filled with the liquid propellants. This modification has been studied to reduce the duration of the presence of the satellite in the APCU and to optimize the fluid resources for the filling and at the same time the resources for the upper part and the fairing. Activities began on the May the 13th with the transport of the first stage of the launcher from its production area directly on the launch table. It transported vertically on a track to the launch area. Launcher and campaign integration activities were resumed on May the 20th. The second stage of the launcher, with the Zefiro 23 engine of about 23 tons of solid propellant, and the third stage of the launcher, with the motor Zefiro 9 of about 10 tons of solid propellant, are manufactured in Italy in the Avio facilities of Colleferro. The stages are then transported to the launch area and integrated on the previous stage to complete the launcher.
FalconEye1 arrived in French Guiana at Cayenne-Félix-Éboué Airport with an Antonov plane the 1st of June. The satellite was transferred by road from Cayenne to Kourou until the Guyana Space Center. Then it was installed in the S1A high bay.
The fourth stage of the Vega launcher, with the Avum engine, has a liquid propulsion with the storable propellants. He was integrated on the launcher on June the 3rd, completing the launcher's integration after 12 campaign days. Over the next 2 weeks, launcher acceptance tests were completed.
FalconEye1 was transferred to S3B filling area the 19th of June. Hydrazing filling of the satellite was performed by Astrotech on 22nd of June. The combined operation between the satellite and the launcher started the 25th of June by the mating of FalconEye1 with the flight adapter in S3B. The day after, FalconEye1 was encapsulated by the fairing. This assembly, composed by the satellite mated on the adapter and encapsulated by the fairing, is called the pack. The pack, with FalconEye1 inside, was transferred to the Vega launch pad and hoisted inside the mobile gantry on 28th of June. Then was integrated onto the Vega launcher on 29th of June.
The Vega VV15 launcher integration campaign once again demonstrates the Avio team's effort to optimize activities and reduce launch costs.
Back in the booth, ground operations and final countdown actually began about 6 hours ago. What we're seeing here is tip of the iceberg, if you will. All of Vega's systems were progressively activated at that time, including the onboard computers. A weather forecast took place at -4 hours to greenlight the gantry removal, which we saw. And the entire launch system was ready at an hour before launch. And then there's another final weather check at -10 minutes. Continuing our presentation of the Dramatis Personae.
À tous de DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
That's Fleur Lefebvre, the DDO. You're going to be hearing her voice all throughout the mission.
Top H0 moins 4 minutes.
She just called out the 4-minute mark, which is the synchronized sequence. You're going to be hearing her call out the milestones before and during the flight. In the background, you can see the green status panels. There they are on the right of your screen. Space base here covering a lot of ground, just under 700 kilometers, roughly the size of Singapore. And you can imagine a lot going on. All these activities can be summed up by these green bars, these green status panels. What they are basically is a go, no-go, red-green resume of everything it takes to prepare, launch, and follow Vega, or of course, Soyuz or Ariane. Green means okay, red means the opposite. Very simple. If we get a red in any of these areas, we stop the countdown. And we check them from time to time before liftoff, the first part of the mission. They must be green to have a go, and you can see that's the case at 3 minutes before liftoff. Roughly 1,700 people working around the space base in all. Our cameras are here in Jupiter, but many others are hard at work in many other spots. And one place is the launch zone, where the launch management teams are working under the direction of this man, the upper part and payload combined operations manager. Today, Stéphane Berger in the role. Most of their work was done earlier in the day. By the time we get to this point, the automatic sequence, 4 minutes, they, like most of us, are waiting. In all, about 100 people up there working in the launch control center, going over the final checks and the last verifications on all parts of Vega's launch system. Launch control center is about 15 kilometers away from where we are here in Jupiter. And the men and women you see are only 3 kilometers from the pad, but they are very well protected, not to worry. They're inside a blockhouse with walls about 1 meter thick. 2 minutes. And here in Jupiter, our invited guests are making their way out, as you can see, onto the terraces to watch the launch. There are 2 terraces, one on either side of the building here. Fine view for our guests on Vega's launch. Vega will launch to the north, away from us, but believe me, there's still plenty to see. Ariane 5's trajectory, and you know if you've been here, she goes east, and it takes her right over the building here. So it's a great crowd pleaser. Coming up on a minute, we are ready. 6th launch of the year for Arianespace and the 2nd Vega of the year. All the tests and the campaigns to prepare the launcher and the satellites and the base are done. We approach the last minute, and you'll hear Fleur Lefebvre.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
She'll call out the 1 minute mark.
Top H0 moins 1 minute.
All right, the final 60 seconds give us a chance to say hello to everyone taking the broadcast, to our friends in Abu Dhabi, at Colifero, Avio, Airbus, and Thales Alenia Space. Greetings also to everyone at ESA, CNES, and Arianespace around the world, to all of our industrial partners, and all of you watching on the internet. We hope you all enjoy the broadcast. We're just seconds away from liftoff, 15th Vega mission, FalconEye1. We'll cut away and let you hear the DDO. She'll call out the final 10 seconds. The mission is about to begin.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage P80 et décollage VV15 avec FalconEye1. La propulsion du P80 est nominale. Et la trajectoire est nominale. Réception de la télémesure lanceur par la station de Saint-Jean-du-Maroni.
Ariane 5 is a heavier vehicle, rises much more slowly, weighs 6 times as much. But Vega lifting off perfectly from French Guiana, beginning the 15th mission in her young career. Weighing 138 tons at liftoff, they call her the light launcher compared to Soyuz and Vega, but over 100 tons isn't exactly featherweight, but what are you going to do? The first stage burning now, as you can see. It's produced in Colleferro near Rome by the Avio people, then delivered here to French Guiana. You saw some of that in the video on the launcher campaign. The first stage weighs 96 tons, 88 tons of that are fuel. Most of any launcher's weight is propellant. The first stage burns its single engine for about 2 minutes before being jettisoned, and you'll see that, and you'll hear the DDO call that out. The launcher signal is, of course, being followed at all times. Right now, our first downrange tracking station on the ground is taking the signal. There's a station here at the base just behind us in Jupiter called Galileo. The second is a little downrange at a place called Saint-Jean-de-Maroni here in French Guiana. And
allumage du VV15.
The DDO has called out separation of the first stage, coming right on time, and ignition of the second stage, coming 1 second later. This is what it looks like on the animation. So we're into the second stage burn. Second stage is called the Z23, Z for Zefiro. Will burn its solid rocket motor for 86 seconds. And again, if you're following the mass and the fuel numbers, she weighs 26 tons, and 23 tons of that are fuel. Coming up to separation shortly of the upper stage. While we're looking at people more dramatis personae, we're going to see the people from ESA. As you can see, the invited guests filing back into the hall here after this very, very spectacular launch. Looking at some of the people from ESA, Charlotte Besco, Vega is an ESA program. Over 1,000 people from 400 European countries and industries have worked on development of the new launcher. ESA was operator of the first 6 flights.
Trajectoire dégradée du VV15.
From flight number 7 in 2016, that role taken over by Arianespace, who holds exclusive rights to market and sell the launch services. ESA remaining.
Séparation du Z23.
ESA remaining the head of the Vega team.
Et allumage du Zefiro9.
Owner of the Vega launch complex, of course. Vega operating at an average launch rate of 1 to 2 missions per year currently.
Perte de l'accélération.
She's the only launcher in her class now in regular production.
Séparation coiffe.
And the DDO has called out separation of the fairing. We can separate the fairing now because we've made it about 120 kilometers above the Earth. We're out of the atmosphere. Passenger now getting its first taste
La trajectoire est très dégradée.
of space. The fairing protects the passengers from the jolts and pressures of the Earth's atmosphere. A word now from Armel Girard, the Mission Analysis Technical Authority.
Hello, I am the mission analysis responsible for this flight. This means that I have to ensure that the flight respects the customer and the French law requirements in terms of trajectory, performance, separation and safety. The required performance for this mission is a little bit less than 1,200 kilograms for a total launch vehicle mass at liftoff of about 138 tons. The flight of the three solid boosters, PAT, VV23 and VV9, will last around 6 minutes. This part of the flight will be followed by the standard North ground tracking station network, Galliot and Saint-Jean in French Guiana, Bermuda and Saint-Hubert in Canada. Then the Vega upper stage, the AVUM, will be ignited for 8 minutes in order to inject the launcher into an elliptical transfer orbit. After a long ballistic phase of 38 minutes, a second AVUM boost for 1 minute over New Norcia ground station will allow to circularize the orbit. Once the targeted orbit will be reached, FalconEye1 will be released 57 minutes after the liftoff.
We have been informed that I think we've lost telemetry. We have a slight telemetry loss. The flight director informing us that we have lost the telemetry link with the launcher, so we're waiting for word from Arianespace. So please wait with us. We'll see. Again, flight director informing us that the telemetry link with the launcher has been lost. So we're waiting for word for Arianespace on the situation, so we'll ask you to please wait with us.
À tous de DDO, que tous les moyens restent activés pour une mise en configuration d'arrêt de la base de lancement.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you have seen, about 2 minutes after liftoff, around the Z23 ignition, a major anomaly occurred, resulting in the loss of the mission. On behalf of Arianespace, I wish to express my deepest apologies to our customers for the loss of their payload and telling them how sorry I am. From the first flight data analysis, we will get in the coming hours more precise information, and we will communicate to everybody at the soonest. Again, let me present my deepest apologies to our customers. Thank you.